me? Can you
Yes,
guys
yes.
see me? A quick yes would be better. Right.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Dr. Pandit, thank you for the opportunity. Hi, Feroz. I hope you're doing well. Uh, Thank you, Pooja. And I was very excited to talk about this. And then also Firoz's name, I said that I would be very, very young and very, very inexperienced to talk in front of him. But Firoz, I'll try and do my justice to whatever I have to say. But in all, excuse me and forgive me if I go wrong somewhere. My passion to technology is not more than your experience and what you've contributed and how you've contributed to the firm and to the larger ecosystem. My passion towards technology comes from a more of a survival instinct, and my passion towards communities and nation building. So, in the next 15 to 20 minutes, I'll try and do justice to the esteemed audience here. What I've thought about is I'm going to divide what I have to say in 2 to 3 sections. The first section is what is your individual relationship with technology? Why? Because go back to economics, individual possibility curve, microeconomics, and macroeconomics. If you have to talk about nation building, you have to talk about individuals. Collectively, that becomes a nation. So first is I'll try and talk about our relationship has to evolve with emerging technologies. Second, I'll try and talk about some of the emerging technologies. Third, I'll try and talk about the solutions which emerging technologies actually offer. And then fourth, possibly, will about bringing all of this together. How does the nation benefit from it, and what the nation building is? So that's what I'm going to do. Thank you for the introduction, but just to quickly 30 seconds for the benefit of everyone. My first half of life is dedicated to KPMG, which is the largest part. I run the learning and development shop there. I'm part of the internal complaints committee, member for sexual harassment cases. That's my first half of life. My second half of life is to dedicate it to an NGO which I run, where we feed underprivileged sections of the communities. At this point of time, thanks to technology, we are running our client Corona helpline, where anyone in India can ask for food and ration. The third half of life is I run a pro bono practice to help people going through depression, stress disorders. So anyone can call us for help. And the fourth half of life is I'm an author. I recently published my first book beginning of this year. So that's how the interest has been varied, and I've seen that the role of technology, one way or the other, cuts all of these sections very, very clearly. So that's what I do for a living. So here is how our relationship with technology has to evolve. I want to take the cue from what Dr. Pandey said, that it's not just a time pass and extracurricular. Has to be the core of life. This is how your lives have to be built. Whether you are in a tier 2, tier 3, tier 1 city, it doesn't matter. The potential of technology is such, has to be made such that it impacts our lives, number one. Number two, all of us started our careers and our lives with the concept of understanding IQ, which is intelligence quotient. A large part of success definition examinations were dependent upon IQ. Then came to the point where we got infatuated with the word called as EQ, which is emotional intelligence and emotional quotient. I want to introduce a third Q here, which is called as DQ, which is digital quotient. If lives have to be successful, personal and professional both, people will have to get to a point where they appreciate the importance of DQ. Digital quotient in professions and in personal lives is going to be of significant importance. So our own relationship, understanding, comprehension with digital quotient has to evolve. If one way or the other, some of us have to contribute individually and collectively towards nation's development. So when you talk about emerging computing technologies, you have to ask yourself that how much do I appreciate the role and the sensitization of what computing technologies are. So the word, everyone, is digital dexterity, digital quotient. We are locked up right now. We are heading for a wave and a phase in the next 5 years where a large part of organizations will either be tech companies or run by tech companies, irrespective of where you are, infrastructure, real estate, healthcare, lifestyle, it doesn't matter. But some part of the revenue, some part of business model, like clinically it is called as deconstruction of value chain, has started to happen. And the deconstruction of value chain will disrupt a lot of it and will digitalize a lot of it. That is my second submission to all of us. I want to quickly share a story which moved my life. It's a case study I typically talk about. I'm going to take you back to November 2017. US gives a drug approval to an organization called as Protus Pharma. Why? Because Protus Pharma created what is called as Abilify, a small medicine which goes inside your stomach, has an ingestible sensor, the first of its kind medicine, which is sensor which monitors and generates so much of data analytics for doctors. Now, it has a sensor. It's the first sensor. Now, take a pause and think what has the next generation computing technologies done to healthcare. What it has done is now you don't know, are you consuming a technology pill or you're consuming a pill with the technology. That is exactly where we stand. The solution which has been provided is bipolar disorders, schizophrenic patients, and other patients who have mental disorders can consume that medicine, and the doctor will get a notification if the medicine has been consumed. The salt dilution tracking, impact on the body, all of that can be monitored. Hence, the organization went through a struggle of hiring a data scientist. A team of doctors and a team of physicists had no idea what a data scientist was, but now they will have to hire a data scientist because now they want to understand the data. That exactly is the potential and the power of emerging technologies in our lives. So, to all the students, to all the interested parties, when you look at skills for yourselves, look at the fact that can you understand and appreciate the impact of emerging technologies. Yes, you don't need to become a coder overnight, but the fact is that you need to understand the nature of Thanos here, and it's pretty much like Avengers. If you want to understand, nobody could tame Thanos and kill Thanos till the time they could understand how Thanos was created. And if you follow Avengers, it's great. If you don't, you must follow Avengers. But at the same point of time, going forward and talking about how it contributes to nation building, uh, see, the concept of smart cities, the concept of smart homes, the concept of smart buildings is not unknown to anyone, and that's the most important point here. If you just do random Google and type smart cities, you get US as a smart city, you get Copenhagen as a smart city, you get Amsterdam as a smart city, and that's the story I want to put forward here. What have these countries done? Traffic solutions, congestion issues, trash management, energy conservation or water conservation, rainfall water management, all of these, also energy management, all of these have been digitalized to a point that so much of data has been generated which offers insights to you. So if you were to take a route, if you were to get into a congestion, if you were to get into traffic, all of those issues, just by the medium of managing data, which is open and out there, and using Internet of Things, can be regulated, can be managed. That is exactly how the definition, one part of the definition of nation building would look like, where our communities, which will have a extremely powerful Wi-Fi connectivity run by an open data, will provide sharp insights, actionable wisdom to people for governance and for policy making. And then it will have an impact on the larger infrastructure of the community. My second humble submission here when we look at nation building is inclusivity. A bigger question here is going to be the fundamental internet penetration, which is significantly increased over the years. But just the way rural banking questioned urban banking because the markets got saturated, just the way Hindustan Unilever, Procter and Gamble emerged into and ITC launched eChopal and ITC Chopal, which is inclusive in nature. A bigger question of nation building using emerging technologies is going to be ensuring that this is the level playing field. This is where it gets everyone on the same playground. So inclusivity of using emerging technologies and ensuring that everyone at every point of a time is able to access that. Indore is a great example of the starting of a smart city, and so are many other cities in pipeline. So that's smart city. So if I were to summarize all of this, I would say that using predictive analytics, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, additive manufacturing, some of these emerging technologies, and seeking solutions which will create and increase the quality of life. And those at this point of time are not considered to be connected. people see evolution of technology as a geeky word, where some people in Silicon Valley or a small showroom or a stock room, they're trying to create different technologies just by coding. But the aspect which we have to see is the impact it will have on our health, on our quality of life, on where we live, the air we breathe. There is also a business case where the quality of air can also be controlled, managed, and regulated by using emerging technologies. There's also a business case where trash management, electricity distribution, all of that can be managed. Imagine the infamous unequal distribution of resources, income, and wealth, which economics has taught us. If there is anything which can bridge that gap at this point of time, in my knowledge, that is emerging technologies. Now, and that is how nation building will be guaranteed. But at the same point of time, let's break nation building to smaller ecosystems. Nation building is not one term. Nation building is then wherever we are, when our societies, our communities, our smaller ecosystems evolve, wo panchayat, that district, that state, that municipality, that NDMC evolves, at a center level, everything starts to evolve. Hence, the individual possibility curve, some fine day, will aggregate itself, and that'll amount to nation building. Transient, piecemeal work will never be classified as nation building. So, if emerging technologies have to prosper and have to largely contribute to nation building, the smaller ecosystems will have to adopt, which means that the academia, where the schooling is, where kids are growing up, they will have to adopt, so that the knowledge of digital dexterity increases. The infrastructure of smaller cities will have to evolve to a point that they understand what digitalization is, they embrace it, and then collectively we'll see that it's impacting the larger welfare. But for those who think emerging technologies is only for people who understand tech, no, absolutely not. We've come to a point where some of the hard pressing issues of humanity, whether it be healthcare, whether it be making buildings, whether it be making infrastructure, whether it be making trash management or energy conservation system, all of that is getting solved just by the virtue of using next gen computation of technologies. So that's where I'm going to take a pause and see if people have some questions. If no, then over to you, Dr. Pandey. I hope I did justice to the time allocated.